Welcome to the Seattle Investors Club podcast with Julie Clark and Joe Bauer, where we share the nuts and bolts of real estate investing from our 20-plus years in the industry. Sit back, relax, listen, and immediately take action. Are you ready? Here we go.
Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how are you today?
I am amazing today, Joe. Thank you very much. But let's get right to it and down to the facts. I am nowhere near as amazing as you are doing right now. Nothing I can even say. My life is boring. So let's pretty much figure out, what are you doing right now? Because I think you are absolutely at one of the most amazing places on the planet as we speak this moment. So tell us what's up.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm glad that you've been here so that you can back me up on this. I am in Amalfi, Italy, which is one of the most amazing places I have ever been, for sure. It's like a town on a mountainside that is like stuck in the, I don't know, what would you say, like the 80s or something?
I don't know. No, I wouldn't even go 80s. I'd say like the 1880s, maybe.
Okay.
The 1880s. Yeah, and right there on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea and the Bay of Naples in Italy. Yeah, don't get me started, Joe. You know, trust me, you are at the most beautiful place on the planet, and I am so jealous beyond jealous, you know, that you are sitting there. And last week you were in Israel, and we had to call you Joseph all week long, your Israeli name. That's what my joke is. But tell us, what have you done in the last 24 hours?
Well, in the last 24 hours, we just got we flew into Italy, and then we took this crazy taxi ride to Amalfi, which, we talked about it offline or off recording before we started. But it is crazy. Like, number one, you got to be a good driver around here. And number two, they drive fast and doesn't seem like there are any speed limits. And number three, as you're driving into Amalfi, you're like fearing for your life that you might fly off a cliff, especially if a bus comes at you because it's bigger than the car that you're in.
Yes.
Holy
no
smokes.
doubt. I'm rocking in my chair, remembering my experience with that myself. But 1,000,000% worth it to get there, right? Just make sure all your life insurance and everything is in place before you go, and all that good stuff. All your trusts are set up, and for all you crazy investors out there. But one of the best places on earth, which is directly across from the island of Capri, however you want to say it. Lifestyles of the rich and famous, no doubt. So I hope you're going to be scooting over there. Wow, how long are you going to be there?
I will be here until Monday, so about 5 days total.
God. Oh yeah, you are going to just be. So I don't know if it's easy to get to like Pompeii from there, or you're.
Yeah, that's where we're going next, actually.
Okay, cool, sweet, nice.
Yeah, and just so I can make a quick note of it, because it was so crazy. Back when we were in Israel, we went to the Dead Sea.
You mean last week, Joe?
Yeah, last week. Well, a few days ago. A few days ago, when we were in Israel, we went down to the Dead Sea, which the Dead Sea is this really crazy phenomenon where it's really salty, like way saltier than the oceans that we have. And because of that, there's extra buoyancy in the water. And you feel like you are like inflatable when you hop in there. It is insane.
Is that the video that you posted where Emily was walking around down on there was like a big castle or some sort of rock castle? Was that place? Is that where it was?
It was the picture that I posted where we had mud all over our faces.
Okay, gotcha, yeah.
So apparently there's so many minerals in the mud from this crazy, sea that they have there that they sell it all over the place, but you can go and just put it on yourself, and you basically are at the spa next to the Dead Sea. But unbelievable. Like you see pictures online of people sitting in the water reading newspapers because you're floating so high. And it's like a thing. It's like that. It's insane. Definitely something to put on your list if you're in the area. It is crazy.
For sure. So where can everybody find all these videos and pictures that you're posting? Because we all need to live vicariously through you, since you're the only one actually really taking charge and living your life, while the rest of us are trying to make money to say we want to go do that. You're actually doing it. So I always want to give props to my brother here, Joe Bauer, for showing us the way to live life. I'm going to meet you somewhere at some point here, but where can they see what you're up to in all those videos and photos?
Yeah, so we're still posting all the time, even though it's the Vantastic Life. We're doing the Vantastic Life on Instagram and Facebook, and actually seems like more Instagram just because sometimes it disconnects. So Instagram goes to Facebook, but if you follow us at instagram.com/the Vantastic Life, you'll get all of the stories and photos and videos and everything.
Super fun. Super fun. I check in every morning when I'm just getting started, as sipping, gets me motivated. Well, that's awesome, brother. And be safe on your travels and keep us posted. You're amazing travelers. And since amazing is the word of the day, we want to introduce you to our amazing guest, Damon Dumas today, who frankly, it is amazing that he can kick ass so hard in the tough business of wholesaling. Damon, what's up, brother? Welcome.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, I just want to I got to toot my own horn and say that was one of my better transitions. I'm feeling pretty good about that.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounded really good. I appreciate the introduction. Thank you.
Right on, Damon. Well, Damon, everybody. Damon Dumas is the principal of Mountainside Properties, LLC. He is absolutely a professional wholesaler, one of the few in town, I'll say, and proud dad of two super athletes, including his son, Vance Dumas, who is going to be playing Viking football. What is he, defensive lineman?
Yeah, that's correct.
Straight out of Hazen High School in Renton, and this will be his first college football season, correct?
That's right.
Awesome stuff, man.
Correct.
The way that I sort of got to know Damon a little bit, or how I sort of felt secretly, and I won't say love because I think you're married or something, I'll say in like love with Damon, is that he posts all these awesome photos of his kids and his son and all the football stuff. And I could just feel the love for your family and your kids coming through your posts. And it just drew me to you as a person. I never told you that before. But I'm telling you now in front of the whole world. So not only is he, a professional, runs his business as a wholesaler, very professional, which is highly, you don't see a lot of that these days. He's an amazing person. And, we want to get to know you better today, Damon. So welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate Investing.
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate the love. You can say love. That's fine because it is love. So I appreciate that. And thank you for the kind words. I think that's what I do it for. I do it for my kids, and that's what's important to me. So I'm glad that you felt that. So yeah, that's what it's all about. And so I noticed that with you. I know you put a lot of your stuff with, your daughters and stuff online, and I feel the same about you as well. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just was walking my dog with my friend yesterday, and I said, God, my kids are going to be 11 years old this summer, and it's a great age. It's so much fun. And we need to, I need to start following Joe's lead and really start going after my why, which is, traveling and having life experiences with my kids around the world. Now that they're going to be 11, I can start kicking it into high gear and putting excuses, again, being surrounded by other awesome people who are hard charging life and just genuinely great people is what we're all about at Seattle Investors Club. And we're glad you're part of our family there. So we're going to let Joe kick us off here. And if you feel like saying it in Italian, Joe, go ahead. Or Hebrew or whatever languages you're picking up on your world travels. But tell us, hook us up with Damon. Let us get to know him a little bit better.
Yeah, so I would kick this off in Italian if I could. Their language actually sounds so interesting. I just don't know it. I need to spend more time learning languages. But Hopefully just as good in English here, guys. Damon, the goal of this first question is get to know you a little bit better. So we know that this crazy world of real estate can suck people in and it can spit people out, but you've been successful with it. So we want to know, man, where are you from? What did you do before real estate, and how did you get into real estate?
Yeah. So I am originally from Chicago, or the Chicagoland area, I should say. I mean, mostly the suburbs of Chicago. Although that's what most people from Illinois say, is I'm from Chicago, even though they never really lived in the city of Chicago. But I'm from Chicago, born and raised. My background before getting into wholesaling was kind of similar industry, but it was same industry, but it was mortgages. I had a mortgage broker or mortgage brokerage for 15 years. And prior to that, I was in sales, auto sales, right? The dreaded car salesman. And I was in auto sales for about 10 years prior to that. 5 years of that 10-year career in the car business was finance. I was a finance manager for the last 5 years of my career in the car business. So it was kind of a natural progression for me, coming from a finance background where I'm dealing with people's credit and banks and, structuring loans. We used loan to value and things like that for automobiles and debt to income ratios and all that, going into the mortgage business, which involved houses and real estate and all that, and learned all about title reports and appraisals and all the other stuff that goes along with that. So it was kind of just a natural transition from the mortgage business to get into the wholesaling end, or the more of the investing side, if you will, of real estate. And that was kind of my main goal from the very beginning as to why I got into the mortgage business. Number one, the car business was crazy, took a lot of my time. If anybody is familiar with that or has ever been in the business, they know that you don't have a life when you work in the car business. And, my son at the time was really young, and I just didn't want to sacrifice, missing time or missing him grow up, or missing seeing my kids grow up. So the mortgage business allowed me more time to spend time with my kids and my family, which was great. But then, as we know, 2008 came rolling around and changed everybody's lives, along with mine. Luckily, was able to kind of, weather the storm, if you will, and made it through there. But just kind of got burnt out from the mortgage business and decided, hey, you know what, it's time for a big change. So packed up the family and we moved from Chicago to Seattle in 2015.
Wow.
And, yeah.
How'd you pick Seattle?
My older brother was originally in the Navy. He was stationed in Oak Harbor, Whidbey Island, and he loved it. He loved it out here. And he came home briefly and said, yeah, this place isn't for me. I'm supposed to be on the West Coast. I'm supposed to be in Washington. So he actually moved out here, 20 years ago or so, maybe 22 years ago. And we visited a lot. We would visit, once, twice a year, and we loved it. And so my mom followed, my other brother followed, and we said, you know what, let's make a change. And we did a major move across the country, and here we are.
Wow. And do you love it?
I do. There is some things, just being honest, there's some things I definitely miss about home. There's definitely some differences between, cultures and the people and the food and all that stuff. There's some differences. So there's some things that I miss, but yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
Right on. So how did you, so you came here and you went straight to wholesaling? How did you get introduced to real estate education? Did you join Fortune Builders or maybe Flip to Freedom or any of that stuff, or just on Bigger Pockets?
So I actually, I had the background, of course, being from the mortgage business. So I knew a lot of the business, a lot of the lingo and a lot of the things for the most part, but there was some pieces that I was missing. I mean, I decided that wholesaling was what I wanted to do. I was snooping around online. I said, I'm sick of this mortgage stuff. I want to find a business that kind of, checks all the boxes for me, that I can kind of work on my own, don't necessarily have to depend on any other employees. I can work at my own time, has a huge upside to make, really good money, has, options for growth in many different directions. So wholesaling kind of
checked became a drug dealer. No, I'm just kidding. That sounds
yeah, right.
Wholesaling, drug dealing. I don't know. Either one of those.
Yeah, they're very close. It's hard to tell the difference between the two sometimes, but but no.
Well, real estate is like crack, right? So I think people get addicted to real estate just like they get addicted to drugs.
It is. Yeah, it is addicting. At least the lifestyle for me, anyway. What it's allowed me to do. The freedom and the many options, if you will, of and directions you can go with this business is unbelievable. From flipping to buy and hold to commercial to whatever. There's so many to training. Become a speaker. Teach people how to do it. I mean, so there seems like there's a lot of different areas where you can grow, and that's the other attraction, the other thing that I liked about it. So yeah, I mean, so mainly this business was something that I decided to stay with. I was snooping around online and was looking at different wholesaling companies and people that were doing wholesaling and stuff on YouTube, and I came across one that seemed like a pretty good coaching program, mentorship program, and it's called Investor Grit, and I jumped in, all in, paid the money, and went through their course and followed it to the T, and it worked. So I was pretty happy. I mean, there was definitely some things that I needed that particular program gave me, because the learning curve. If I would have tried to go it alone, would have took me a lot longer to figure everything out. And know exactly how to do it. So they showed me more or less how to do it, the right way to do it, and it was very helpful. Very helpful.
Awesome. And are you still part of that Investor Grit community today, or do you still participate in that?
I am still. I mean, they call us rhinos, right? So everybody that goes through the program is considered a rhino. So I am definitely a rhino, and I do participate in different things with them occasionally. I'm not as active as I probably could or should be, but I'm a rhino. So because I owe them all the credit for showing me the wholesaling side and getting me to where I'm at today. So absolutely.
Sweetness. Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that, because I was actually looking at the Investor Grit website with those guys. I had no idea you were going to say this, of course, like a week ago, so that's cool. That's awesome. I'm glad that worked out for you. Everybody gets their education from different places, different real estate coaches, whether they're local or not. We also here at Seattle Investors Club tell everybody, like, get your education and plug in wherever you feel like you have a good fit and is good information and you like the people, and then always make sure you plug into your local real estate investment club, because a lot of the gurus around the country are not in our local market, and there's nuances and tips and masterminding we can do together here that'll give us the edge here locally, more micro. But yeah, looks like something worth checking out. Maybe we'll talk to those guys too, and maybe even get them on our podcast. I know they've got their own, looks like they've got a podcast and some other stuff, but check it out, guys. So that's awesome, Damon.
Yeah,
what do you?
They actually do have a podcast. I just want to say real quick, I actually did a podcast for them as well, and I think it's number 98. I think I should know that, right? But I did a podcast with them, and I occasionally have people say, "Hey, I heard your podcast." So it's kind of cool to hear that sometimes. You know, it kind of makes you feel good when you're kind of like a low key celebrity a little bit, but you know.
Well, we're gonna do our best to heighten your celebrity status here today as well, here in Seattle area in the Pacific Northwest. So let me ask.
I am a rock star. I am a rock star. Just so you know. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you're a smooth operator, that's for sure, no doubt about that. So, what do you? Let me ask you. Do you think that someone can be a part-time wholesaler, or what's your commitment on your business? How many hours a week are you working? It seems a little, with all the competition, with all the, competitive here, at least in our market. Are you wholesaling only in the Washington area, or are you doing like across state lines type of thing?
No, I'm only wholesaling here in Washington, pretty much only 2 counties throughout King and Pierce County. So I don't do any virtual wholesaling or go too far out of the area. I like to, go see all the properties and things. So between King and Pierce, I can hit all those. But yeah, to answer your question, I don't believe anybody can do it part-time. I know people do it. They have a full-time job and then they try to jump in or dip their toe in and try to do things part-time. I just don't think you can, because if you're doing it and running the proper systems, you're going to have to take a phone call or talk to a seller or go see a property at 10 a.m. or at noon or, whatever, 6 a.m., or you go meet, some of these sellers might want to meet you at Starbucks. I mean, so if you have a full-time job, you can't do it. You can't, you're going to miss a lot of the things. And I think, the learning curve is going to be a lot longer if you're not going to spend, your full time doing it. So when I made a decision back in 2017, I went full time. That was my goal. Was I'm just going to jump all the way in. I'm going to go full time with it, because I knew in my mind there's just no way it's going to work part time. So
I 100% agree with you. If you are wanting to make your living off of wholesaling, and then hopefully, and that means that you end up buying some real estate yourself. And if you listen to our podcast with Jeff Watson, you're actually required to do that to be legal with wholesaling. We'll talk about that later, but I agree with you. I coach a lot of other investors, a lot of agents, a lot of broker agents, coach a lot of people here locally. And I try and tell people, if you're jumping in and you think you're going to be wholesaling, you got to be committed full time, or you're basically going to waste your time and spin wheels. You won't be able to sustain yourself unless you have the major hustle and professionalism required to be a successful full-time wholesaler and make a living at it. I agree with you 100% there. So if you guys are listening and you want more details or want to hear me talk more about that, come see me on a Tuesday in Burien, and we'll tell you how to do that later so we can move on here. But what do you love about wholesaling, and what parts do you dislike?
So I know this may be funny to most people, or maybe not, but I love the negotiating part of wholesaling. I don't really like the other part of talking to, disinterested people or unmotivated sellers, because there's a lot of that. I do where I find a motivated seller, they're realistic on their price, and then we get to that negotiating table. And that's where I think I shine, where I think I'm the best at. And that's what I love about it the most.
Where did you learn your negotiation skills? Did you read a book like Jay Scott's book, or are you just a natural born negotiator after all your years with auto sales and mortgage brokerage and all that stuff? You obviously very good at sales and you're a smooth operator. Where did you learn those negotiation skills?
Yeah, I didn't read any books. I didn't take any classes. It was all just self-taught from the car business days is where I got my best training, because you're dealing with people that think you're the scum of the earth, right? You're
right.
Lower than whale poop. right? You're your lowest of the low. So they come in, with their guard up and, angry. Oh, you're not going to screw me over, buddy. So you got to so it takes a talent and it takes some good negotiating skills to disarm them, get them to trust you, get them to like you, build that rapport. So I would say that the majority of my negotiating skills, sales skills, came from the car business, which was some of the best training I think I ever had out of anything. And then, of course, it carried over into the mortgage business, which there's some negotiating stuff with that as well. But yeah, I mean, that's where it came from. It was more self-taught and just from experience, just from dealing with people on a daily basis with a bunch of different personalities and dealing with different scenarios and situations and being in it so long, you see it. You almost get to a point where you see the same scenarios repeat themselves. So you get good.
That's interesting you say that about car sales, because I have some other friends that were previously at one point in the car sales business or related to the car sales business. And they are seriously the smoothest, well-spoken people that I know. Then they come out of the auto sales, car sales business. That I think you're right. I think you get put up and you're dealing with so much there. You have to adapt to survive, and the training is probably awesome, right? So, yeah, maybe I'm going to send the girls off to be auto sales people at 18 or summer jobs or something like that. Get the good training in, right?
Well, I can tell you it's different nowadays, and I'm dating myself. So I'm going back to the 90s when I was in the business. And, of course, prior to that, it was even different when I was in it. So it's different now. Things have changed with the internet and, just overall, most of the dealerships have changed their tactics on how they gain their business and things like that. So it's a whole different type of sale than what it was when I was in the business in the 90s. So it's still good training, but not as good as it was back then.
Technology is taking over. It's disrupted the car industry. Technology is starting to disrupt heavily the real estate industry. It's going to look totally different. We're like the last dinosaur to get the full tech disruption, but there is some major shit going down right now. I don't know if you guys all are aware of this, but if you are in the real estate business, my tip to you all is go ahead and get the Damon News subscription, because that's where you're going to keep up with what's happening in our industry. And it is changing rapidly for all real estate people, whether you're wholesalers, investors, brokers, mortgage people. You guys need to stay on top of it, or you need to come and hang out with me and let me keep you on top of this, because there's going to be some pivoting and some education that needs to happen for all of us as our industry continues to disrupt here. But well, that's awesome, dude. So do you have any current mentors that do you like listen to some certain podcasts all the time, or how do you continue to learn about the real estate biz as my little transition off of that favorite, podcasts aside from ours, of course, but that you listen to? Maybe it's the guys on the Investor Grid. I don't know.
I don't really listen to many podcasts. I just try to stay active with the different groups, the meetups and things like that, and constantly talking with other investors and flippers and wholesalers and, everybody. And so that's kind of what I do. I do read some books. There's some books that I've read, and some people I follow, like, Grant Cardone and, some of those other, I'm reading Think and Grow Rich right now by Napoleon Hill. And there's another book that is really good, is Never Split the Difference. So there's just some different things that I try to stay. Yeah. So I try to stay active on some of those, some of the different readings, different books. But I would say most of my information or training, if you will, just comes from interacting with other people that are real life living it and experiencing it.
Learning off the streets. Exactly. I got another book for you to put in your wheelhouse there. It's called Profit First. And it's probably different than all the other books that you're reading. We also did a podcast with, what do we want to call him? Mike Motorbike. That's what we call him. I don't know, Joe, if you can drop that podcast link into the show notes here we'll remind everybody about how awesome the Profit First book is. Trust me, just check the link and maybe even listen to the podcast. You'll see what I'm talking about if we're swapping books here. But Good stuff. I'm going to keep moving on. So what do you think in your business as wholesaling? What is the easiest situation to close on? And do you pay attention at all to personality types? That's something that I pay close attention to in our business, even as a traditional broker. I'm both a broker and an investor. I'm in both situations. I'm in wholesale or retail situations all the time. And I find that paying attention to personality types helps tell me which direction to go on the closing technique that I use. I know you're just born smooth, but what is the easiest situation or deal type that you find is easiest to close on, and what's the hardest?
Well, I would say that, it's all based on the level of motivation from the type of, I know you said personality type, but of course, if it's a property that's in desperate need of repair, maybe a hoarder, I noticed that those types of properties, those types of deals are the easiest to close, where there's some motivation for them to make some money on a deal, or they need money for some other situation. But for whatever reason, it just seems like most of these hoarder homes, those are like the easiest to close. The harder ones that I find are, of course, the people that don't really need to necessarily sell their property. They're just wanting to sell it.
They're more curious. They start off as curious.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're just kind of, tire kicker, if you will, and just trying to figure out, hey, I'd sell it if I got the right price. So those are a little bit harder to negotiate with, because, I like to find motivation. That's what I do. And most wholesalers will probably tell you this. They need people that are motivated. And the biggest thing that I always say is you want to find people that have to sell their house, not want to sell their house. So that's for me as a wholesaler. That's the hardest part.
Is that the hardest part about wholesaling, or is that something that gets easier to zero in on once you've established those types of sellers, like hoarder houses, like you say, or, I always think that pre-foreclosure houses are tough to deal with, because those people are actually somewhat savvy sometimes, and they shop your deal really hard. So my own business model, I will never give a contract to a pre-foreclosure, if I happen to run across one, because I don't market towards them, because that's against Washington state law. A little tip there for all you guys, if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's called the Washington State Distressed Homeowners Act. So don't pull a list of pre-foreclosures or bankruptcies or things like that where people are considered in financial distress, because it's against our state law, in Washington state at least. A little sidebar for you there. But you will come across those just, in your general marketing. You can't avoid them sometimes. I'll just saying this all the correct way today. You guys can go be cowboys or cowgirls and do whatever you want, but our tribe tries to do it the right way. But I find that if they won't sign it while I'm there, then they're going to take it and shop it. So I do not ever give me personally, I could be wrong. I'm not the smartest person in the room here, but how do you feel about pre-foreclosures and dealing with those guys? Do you find it challenging, or?
I honestly haven't dealt with any, to tell you the truth, because of the law here. I try to avoid them as much as I can. Yeah, I come across them, but in most cases, I don't even waste my time with them, just because of, I would, I know that it's not going to be the easiest deal to work with, or the easiest people to work with, because of their situation, number one. But number two, I try to avoid them because of the law, so I don't really, I'm trying to think back of any of the deal. I mean, I know I've talked to some of those people, but I don't think I've ever put one together that was in pre-foreclosure that we did. So
that's fantastic, because you're a busy, active, full-time wholesaler doing really well, and you're doing it by the rules, and you're still kicking ass and making it. So good for you. Big virtual high five on that one. Not to say you guys can't do those deals. That's up to you. We're just saying that you can be successful without doing them as well. So I don't know if you hear like guys like John Cochran and, you know, those guys, System Saturday guy, talks about multiple layers of motivation. So he takes lists of one type, let's call them however you might, you know, get your list, and he layers them on top of other lists. And so multiple layers of motivation pop out. And that's your niche list. Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's definitely, you know, those people that have the multiple layers of motivation tend to be a lot more motivated. So if they're, you know, if they're distressed, if they're, you know, behind on their taxes,
divorce plus, exactly.
Yeah. Getting divorced, behind in their taxes, in bankruptcy, pre-foreclosure, that person's going to be probably a lot more motivated than somebody that has only just one motivating factor, for sure.
Right. You know, or eviction or what do you want to call it? What am I saying? Where you get in trouble with the city. What's that called? I'm drawing a blank. Where you get a notice.
You're talking about, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the, I can't even think of the word either.
We're drawing a blank here. You know, we'll think of it in a minute, like the compliance stuff from the city, that multiple layer and all that stuff. Exactly. Let me ask you another question. How about sellers? What do you say to sellers that are, like you call them up and they're saying, okay, Damon, yeah, thanks for your interest. I'm going to have an open house on Saturday. They're just a seller selling their own place. You know, all the, you know, investors and agents are going to come over and they're going to give their offers to me. Essentially, they're collecting offers. You know, there's definitely sellers that are like that and do that. What do you do in that situation? Do you go and just hope that, or not hope, but use your negotiating savvy to deal with that? Or how do you handle those? Do you compete and get in the mix there?
Absolutely not. I do not compete, and I tell them over the phone, you know, if that's their intention, then you can just count me out because I don't compete. You know, and then I kind of follow up with, but what I do offer is this. I offer my expertise. I'm going to be able to close without any issues. The price that I do give you on your property is going to be a firm price. I'm not going to come back and try to, you know, negotiate it later or anything like that. So whatever we agree to, you can count on it's going to happen. But if you're looking to get multiple offer situation with a bidding war type of situation, then I'm probably not going to be a good fit for you. You know, you're better off just dealing with the brokers and the other buyers that are interested in doing that, because you know, certain properties have to fit my business model. There's got to be profit in it. And by the time everybody bids the property up, all the profit's gone. So I don't compete. And I tell them right on the phone that I won't compete.
Boom. Well, like minds think alike. I mean, that is exactly what we do. It's kind of fun, actually. I love it when we get those calls, you know, we say the same thing. We say, you know, I'll say, you know, thanks, Joe, for the opportunity to compete. I use the opportunity to compete for your property. But we're professionals here. We've been doing this for a long time, you know, 20 years in the game here. And I agree with you, as I'll say, the guy's name is Joe. I agree with you, Joe. You should talk to all those agents, collect all those offers, get all the information you can. That's a fabulous idea. And then when you've decided which one of those that you like the best and the top price that you get, then how about you just give me a call back? You tell me what the price is I need to pay to secure your property, and I'll tell you yes or no. And I say it like that. Because it feels good to like shove it back on them. And guess what? They call me back. They do. So try that one. It works. They'll call you back. Right. And it's funny because I have one right now near Microsoft, you know, out in Bellevue. And that happened. I even got an email from the stupid broker who's totally illegally marketing it off market with his name on there and his brokerage. What a ding dong. Totally breaking every rule under the planet there. And I said, just wait. This is not going to happen. That price is stupid. And, you know, we just put it on our follow up like 2 weeks later, you know, or 3 weeks later, check to make sure if it sold or not. And boom, guess what? It didn't. So now we're back in the mix. And I'm able to say, you know what? I'm not going to meet that price, but I'll go back to what I told you before. And on top of that, there are some other options, that we've offered you that are still on the table. But I'm not at that price, but I am still here. And I don't even care if I get the deal. You guys got to operate in this business that you just don't care whether you get the deal. You go in there, you tell them the price that works for you, and you also provide good, honest, great information and, hone all your negotiating skills and your closing skills, of course, and your phone skills and your appointment setting skills, and get a good list. But you can't go in there worrying about whether you're going to get the deal or not. You go in there doing what you do with confidence, and confidence sells, doesn't it, Damon? Confidence.
Absolutely.
Is a natural draw.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say that you can't think about not getting the deal. You got to go into it. If you get the deal, great. If you don't, no big deal. It's not going to make or break you, and that's kind of the mindset that I enter when I start to talk to a seller and we're negotiating and I make an offer and things like that. And you can't ever take it personal. Oh, they didn't accept my offer, or you start getting, freaked out that, oh, now what am I going to do to get a deal? And I don't know. And I just spent all this time. You can't worry about it. You just got to make offers. Number one, you have to make offers. Okay. You have to make offers as much as you can. So you have to be able to have the opportunity to make an offer on a property, number one. And number two, you can't be worried if your offer gets accepted or not. And number three, you got to make, a lot of cases, a low ball offer that you feel in your own gut that's like, oh, this is low. But you know what? You have to do it, because guess what? The answer is no if you don't ask anyway. So you have to make these offers. You have to low ball them, unfortunately. And I know that a lot of these sellers are, oh, you don't lowball me. They always say that, but that's, we're not lowballing you. It has to fit the business model. It has to fit what makes sense for your business to make money. Not that everything.
How do you go about that, Damon? When your business, when you know that you're probably have some room, because you got to leave some room for negotiation, maybe, or maybe you don't. Maybe how do you roll on that? Do you know you're gonna give them like one click or two of negotiation? And how do you keep them engaged after you've started off with your lower number?
So normally when I hit them with a number, and then I follow up and say, so, you got my offer, what are you thinking? Oh, that's too low. Then I'm negotiating with, well, what's the best price you would consider? I kind of go back over my spiel again, and then they say, well, I want another, $20,000 more, or things like that. So I normally just say, well, you know what, let me look at the numbers. Let me go back and look at the numbers. I think we're going to be, too far apart at that number, but let me go back and look at the numbers and see if I can make that work. But what you're saying is if I paid you X amount of dollars for this property, we would have a deal. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I kind of like pre-close them and try to keep them engaged, making them, saying that, hey, I'm going to go back and look at the numbers and look at things, and then I'll get back with you. So
is your policy, though, when you're initially talking to them, do you try and get them to give you a number or anything like that?
Absolutely.
Like never tell them a number first?
I always get them to tell me a number.
Exactly.
So they have to give me the number first. I know they try to play that game. It's kind of a tug of war where they're trying to, well, you tell me a number. No, you tell me your number. No, you tell me your number. And I just from negotiating, asking them the right questions and asking them multiple times different ways is how I get them to give me a number. I usually, there's some people that just won't give it up. Which to me, that's another gauge of, exactly. I was just going to say, that's another gauge of motivation. If they're not willing to give me the number, then they're not that motivated. Another good tidbit for people to know too is a question that I ask, and it's a hard question, but you have to ask it, is what do you owe on the property? What's owed on it? How much do you owe on it? Now, a lot of people are, feel that that's a personal question or whatever, but you have to know that information. But also, more than anything, the biggest thing that brings out is the level of motivation. Most people that are motivated, they will not hesitate to tell you what they owe on it. Not one bit. The people that are not motivated, they're going to usually follow up with, well, what does that matter? What does what I owe on the property have anything to do with it? that gives you a good idea that those people aren't that motivated, and you're probably not going to do a deal with that person. I've yet to do one. So
good tip. And just a reminder to everybody, again, I want to say, if you are considering getting into the full-time wholesaler business, make sure, make sure you have a lot of savings. It's not as easy at all as people say, and you got to hard charge it. But again, there is a lot of legalities in regards to wholesaling, legally or illegally. And we are friends, very, very, one of my biggest moments for me personally is that I have gotten to know Jeff Watson, who is he's an attorney out of Ohio, who is the national legal authority on legal wholesaling, who I think I am fair to say is become one of my personal friends now. Shout out to Jeff if he's listening. We're going to have him back in Seattle, hopefully every year, doing some cool stuff with us. But we did a major deep dive on legal wholesaling with Jeff Watson on our podcast. I don't know if, Joe, you know that number off the top of your head, but we're going to link it in the show notes down here as a reminder to everybody. We're not going to talk about it today, but definitely if you're going to be doing that, or even doing it part-time, or even considering it, listen to that podcast. Lots of good stuff there. And one thing I can say about Damon, that I want everybody to know, is that the way that people screw up wholesaling, as far as legal wholesaling goes, a big piece of it has to do with marketing, and not just marketing for how you get the deals, but marketing how, once you have the deal, how you market it, and what you say, and how you communicate that you have a deal. And I'll say that Damon is one of the few people in town here in the Pacific Northwest Seattle area that I feel does it correctly with how you market your properties. And so for all of you that want to learn how to do that, because we're going to run out of time today, you need to get on Damon's buyers list, and you'll probably be getting a deal from him soon, because he is a baller in that department with his wholesaling business. But when you get that, pay attention to how he is communicating that deal to you guys as a principal party in a valid and assignable purchase and sale agreement. The language that he uses is very mindful and specific. Would you agree, Damon, that there's a reason why you do it that way?
yeah, absolutely.
Right. And again, guys, I think I want to stay away from deep diving on that topic today on the podcast, because I want you guys to go listen to the Jeff Watson podcast that outlines the specifics on that, so we don't, miss anything. But one important part of that, and Damon, you're good to go because you've closed on as far as joint venture goes, is that you guys have to be able to close on some properties as a wholesaler. And I will leave it at that in order to be a legal wholesaler, as far as the way that you're probably marketing to purchase your properties in the first place. Again, I'm not going to deep dive. I'm leaving that carrot dangling in front of you to go listen to that other podcast, more so because we're going to run out of time today. But let me ask you just a couple more questions as we start winding down here, Damon. So what is your, how do you do mainly driving for dollars to build your list, or you pull from title companies or list source, or, I know there's some others out there. What do I want to say? I can't remember. We've talked about it before. I think, what's your source of your list pulls, if you want to share that?
Yeah. So all of my marketing is direct mail marketing. And I pull lists from various different sources, List Source, Rebo Gateway.
That was it.
A couple
Rebo
others.
Gateway. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just strictly direct mail. I have tried some other marketing channels like, some pay-per-click stuff and some other, things on the internet, Facebook advertising stuff. And it just, for me, it didn't work. It was just cost too much, and the results just were not as good as the direct mail has been. So
Old
my
school,
bread and butter.
Me too. Direct mail is where it's at. I think. There is other. A lot of people these days are, doing the Mojo Dialer and RVM. Are you doing any of that?
I am not. I am going to be implementing some RVM, which for people that don't know what RVM, it's ringless voicemail. I am going to be doing some of that on this next campaign that I'm doing, just to test it and see if there is a benefit to it. So I'm going to be trying some things like that.
Right. And for all you guys, check into that. I know like Sean Terry offers RVM. He has his, I think he calls it RVM, but that's Flip to Freedom. Sean Terry is a guy that is out of the Arizona area that I grew up listening to. He's got a great podcast as well. I think most of you guys know who he is. But remember, there are lots of laws and rules, and they're getting tougher and tougher and tougher around, cold calling and auto dialing and ringless, I don't know. That's, for me, that's always the hiccup. I'm just so damn busy. I get scared that I don't trust anybody following the rules. And that's always been my hesitation on that stuff. I mean, luckily for me, direct mail has always worked. And I have a absolutely ninja person on the phones for me that has, is a good reason of why it does work. But I also see you have an Investor Carrot site. Do you like those guys, or does that just happen to where you built your site originally? Do you engage in their services beyond what your site is hosted by them, or what's up with that?
No, I started out with, when I went to, do a website, came across those guys, and they've been great. I love them. I love, the content and stuff, and just the overall customer service and support that they offer. It's been great. So, but yeah,
hey, Joe, we should get somebody from Investor Carrot on the podcast. Little company meeting as we're having this podcast here today. Maybe Joe, we can make a note to self or hit me up with a Slack on that to remind me to check out if we can get somebody from Investor Carrot on just to learn about those guys. But
so that's one of the things too that it's kind of getting into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of my business. But I always open title as soon as I get a property under contract. I immediately open escrow and open title with attorney's title, because number one, that shows, of course, my intent to close the deal. Number two, you can find out a lot of information from that title report, and there could be some other issues. You might not even be able to close on it. There might be some issues on title that you have to get cleared up. So I immediately open title on every property I get under contract.
And how do you work your earnest money? Do you, well, I guess the first question is, do you sell to roughly the same handful or 5 or 10 buyers all the time, do you find, or are you selling to different people all the time, or you have your go-tos? I think the dirty little secret of wholesaling is that, a lot of wholesalers probably sell to a handful of the same people all the time in different division, whatever they know their niche is.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is with me. I mean, I know that, my mentor and most mentors and gurus out there tell you to build a buyer's list and have a big buyer's list, but I don't find that to be beneficial, because you're right. It's usually a handful of the same buyers that just keep coming back and buying my deals. That
can close, because you're in the business to get closed, right? You don't want to goof around with somebody you don't know, right? That's why people who blast out their deals in these public, chats or groups and stuff, that's, I think that's asking for trouble, because you got to know ideally who your buyers are. And if you're just getting started, the best way to do that is join your local real estate investment club and go meet who they are and talk to other people about who the big buyers are. And not to say that if you're out there and you're a buyer, you're like, dang it, Julie, stop that. You can get to the top of a wholesaler's list, and you guys want to know how you can do that if you're a buyer? Be super duper 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 responsive, and then contact them every week or something with just a quick text. Hey man, what you got this week? I'm here. I'll be quick. Yep. And even if it's a no, the fact that you give them a response, the wholesalers are looking for feedback. So there's your tip for all you investors out there looking to get to the top of the food chain with some of the big wholesalers in town. Contact them weekly. Don't bug them. Just like a quick text. I used to tell people when they, for me, I'd say, let's have some fun with this. Don't ask me a bunch of questions. Just simply text me and go honk, honk, beep, beep, and I'll know it's you. some, a little funny and shaking up the day. I don't need everybody.
Yeah.
Don't call me because I'm busy. Just give me a honk, honk, beep, beep. And that'll remind me that you're there. Right. And I appreciate that.
And I would say too, Julie, I would say too that, what I've come across is that, if you're going to be a serious buyer and you tell a wholesaler after they've sent you over a property and you said, yeah, I like it, I want it, you've got to be able to perform and move forward quickly on it. I've had, from putting properties on the group or whatever and shooting it out to somebody and they go, yeah, I like it, I want it. And then, I'm like, okay, well, here's the contract, here's the assignment agreement, get that back to me right away. And they don't get back to me. I call them, don't answer. I text them, don't respond. And I'm like, what's going on? So that's the other side of too, is these buyers. If you're going to be a buyer, be a real buyer and be honest and be transparent. If there's a problem with the deal or a problem with something you saw in the contract you didn't like, or you didn't realize this or that, then tell the wholesaler that. Don't waste his time or ghost him or, ignore him and blow him off. If there's an issue with something, say it. Or even if it's the price, it's still too much. I think I could pay this much. I think a lot of these buyers are afraid to ask for a discount on these properties. You can't be afraid of that. You know what I mean? So
Right.
Just be honest and transparent and upfront with that.
Exactly. Do you do a home inspection? A lot of my big buyers want to do the actual physical home inspection just so they don't miss anything because, of volatility in the market, especially today, or inconsistency in the market. They want to be tight. I know some people do, some people don't, but I doubt you're crawling down in the crawl space. And I definitely know that there's been some deals on my own stuff where stuff was missed because there was some rot in like the crawl space, or you never know. That's a lot of intel down in those places. And I know as a wholesaler, you're probably not crawling down in the crawl space, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's why I do an inspection contingency on all of them. And depending on the property, we'll get an actual professional inspector to come in and inspect it, or we'll just inspect it ourselves, So
I want to give you guys another tip on great buyers to have on your buyers list are, if you're a wholesaler, are real estate brokers, because real estate brokers run around with retail buyers, right? Or buyers, you don't know. They have a lot more buyers than just, that I always think that real estate brokers, and they can ask their buyer to pay them themselves, right? You don't have to split your fees with them or anything. You do whatever works, I guess is what I'm saying. But as a little tip to you, I think having real estate brokers on your buyers is a great way to maybe even get a premium or sell the properties that are tight. It might require you to relook at the financing or rewrite the contract, maybe, because once you make substantial changes to your contract, that might change things a bit. So again, listen to the Jeff Watson podcast. But, like Damon says, when a seller wants to sell and they're motivated, you can do things 100% the correct way. Those people just want to sell, right? Those people just want to sell. So you can do whatever you need to do to make sure you've got all your I's crossed and I's dotted and T's crossed there. All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up here because I'm actually hosting another meetup today. If you guys haven't heard about TrueDeed, those are my friends. It's a software that lays on top of the MLS. Super powerful, awesome stuff. I'm hosting a meetup and partnering up with my friends TrueDeed today. Contact me, Julie, at SeattleInvestorsClub.com if you want to know more about it. But lastly, Damon, if you had all the unlimited funds in the world, okay, because you're a rock star wholesaler, I'm not going to beat you up today about getting a real estate license, which is my favorite soapbox to stand on for all you guys that know me well. I'm not going to go there today. But if you had unlimited funds and you could do whatever you wanted with your life, outside of real estate, what would you do?
I would probably travel the world like Mr. Joe is doing. I would travel the world and see, try to see every inch of this planet and just, experience different cultures and different countries and different cities and different foods and whatever. And that's what I would do. I mean, I would probably spend a lot of time near a lot of beaches mostly, but yeah, that's what I would do.
That is exactly what I would do, have life experiences with friends and family and my kids and travel the world. And the funny thing is, guess what? As a little reminder, as we come full circle here today, that Joe Bauer doesn't have all the money in the world and unlimited funds. He's just a normal person just like the rest of us, and yet he's out doing it. So again, love and shout out to my partner, Joe Bauer, who is showing us the other side of the equation here, how to keep it real and live life on your own terms. But so Damon, awesome stuff. So people, you can go check out Damon's website and that is the We Buy Houses in PNW.com. If you want to check out Damon's awesome wholesaling website there. And Damon, how do people get on? What's the easiest way for all the buyers who are going to react quickly and just give you their straight up responses and get to the top of your buyers list? How do they get on that buyers list?
They can, of course, go to my website and request that, or they can email me with their contact information and their criteria. And that would be, my email address is damon@mspropertiesllc.com. So that would probably be the best way to get to the top of my buyers list.
Sweetness. Awesome sauce. And if you want to hang out more with yours truly, me, and maybe even Damon will be stopping by, hopefully, on a Tuesday. I just want to give a big shout out, big announcement to all you guys that have been joining us at our local mastermind and roundtable mastermind and coaching that happens. Just open discussion. It's super rad with a capital RAD rad on that. We are moving our weekly venue. We're in Burien. We've been in Burien at the Elliott Bay Brewhouse and Pub for the last, I'll say, 6 months. Which has been great. We are still going to be in Burien, but we found it's a little too loud there because, speaking of loud, there's Buddy barking his butt off. Buddy, hey, we are moving to Angelo's in Burien, which is an awesome Italian old school restaurant in Burien. It's literally just 1 block away from where we've been, and that is every single Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., not only are we going to fill you full of awesome information. Actually, we're going to all just share information together because there's no presentation. It's just an open chat with all of us actually looking at each other's faces, which changes the dynamic entirely. But we're also going to get you all fat full of Italian food each week. So join us as soon as you can on a Tuesday, and you will be absolutely amazed at the power of what a small group mastermind will do. You can bring all your friends, all your deals, all your problems, all your challenges, all your successes, and come have lunch with us every Tuesday or whatever Tuesday you can show up to. So that's that. The dog is barking because somebody's ringing my doorbell. Joe, tell them how they can find the details of today's podcast.
Yeah, the details and the show notes can be found at seattleinvestorsclub.com/77. That's seattleinvestorsclub.com/77. And if you guys like what we're doing here, we'd love it if you'd give us a rating and review on iTunes at seattleinvestorsclub.com/iTunes. Yeah, and this podcast is free to subscribe to. So if you haven't done that yet, hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast hosting service. There you have it.
Awesome sauce. City of Seattle or Puget Sound Energy has decided they're inspecting all the sewer lines in my neighborhood. So There you go. That's what's going on over here. All right. Thanks, guys. And Damon, thanks again. Joe, please, safe travels. Keep posting all the pictures and videos. And we will be catching up with you guys next week. Right on. Over and out.
Right.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.